Welcome to Make Small Talk Sexy 2.0. I'm Bobby Rio, and I'd like to congratulate you for making the decision to fix this. I created this program as a supplement to my social training lab program, and the reason I created this is because conversations are your highest leverage activity. And what I mean by that is when you fix conversation, it transcends into all other areas of your life. The skill of being able to be a good conversationalist, I think, is the single most important skill in life because it not only affects who you'll date, what kind of girls you're going to meet, it also affects what kind of friends you're going to make. It affects how much money you're going to make, how far you're going to get in your career, and it also affects how much fun you're going to have when you go out. Before I fixed this, going out to bars and clubs or even going on vacations weren't nearly as fun because I sort of felt trapped by who I could connect with and communicate with. Probably the most important reason that I created this program is because it seems to be an area that a lot of you are struggling with. I personally struggled with this for a long time, so I'm happy to be able to finally give back and share some of the things I learned along the way that helped me. The format of the program is going to work like this. In the first lesson, I'm going to talk about what makes a conversation good, what separates the smooth talkers from the guys who just bore women, and I'm going to give you tips that you can go out and use tonight. For me, that is the most important thing, to be able to give you things in each lesson that you can go out, put into action, and see results immediately. Because as you go through this program, whatever you hear, and whatever you think, like you have one of those moments where it's like sort of an aha and it makes sense to you, or you think it's something you should try, you gotta go out and test it immediately. What I found in life is that whenever you put an idea into action, it dramatically reduces the learning curve and it gives you a feeling of control and accomplishment. So in this very first lesson, you're gonna get things that you can use tonight. We're gonna be talking about techniques for bidding topics and directing a conversation, tips for creating more emotional conversations. And then we're going to go into the next module. In the second module, we're going to go in depth into creating and crafting playful and fun conversations. The third module will be about crafting flirtatious conversations. The fourth module is called the Banter Workshop, where I'm going to give you an in-depth workshop on being able to banter with women. The fifth module is called the Rapport Building Blueprint, and that module, it's going to be all about creating rapport and connection with women. In the sixth module, we're going to show you how to mix all these things together, beginning right from the opener. And in the seventh module, you're going to learn how to go out there and practice this stuff. The topic is conversation skills, and ultimately, this is going to help you communicate better in ways that get you the outcome that you desire, whether it means meeting women, which is the purpose we're talking about in this program, but it also, like I said, making friends, making more money, connecting with people. But in this program, we're going to focus on using conversation to create attraction and sexual chemistry with women that you desire. We're going to be talking about a lot of specific concepts and techniques, and these are the means or the facilitating advice to ultimately to create attraction. And the reason I state this is because a lot of guys, they tend to get complacent. Once their conversation skills improve, they start having so much fun with conversation that they don't want to ruin it, which is an entire topic I'll be discussing through all parts of this program. This is not going to be just about how to carry your conversation, but also how to help you think, and more importantly, how you practice the skills you're learning. Because if you're not taking this advanced knowledge and implementing it, it's useless. And I think that a lot of you are practicing wrong. And in the final lesson, I'm going to explain a practice method that I found to be extremely helpful, and why the practice method that a lot of people might be doing is actually doing more harm than good. So why is conversation skills the most important? Because it's worth the dedication. If you spend the time to work on this, even if it takes you the next 6 months to really perfect this, it's a skill that lasts the entire lifetime. It's a lifelong skill that's highly leverageable through all areas of your life. Like I said, it'll help you make more friends. It'll help you get better jobs, make more money, date hotter women, and have more fun with everything you do. There's nothing else you can do that if you put that much time in for just 6 months of really practicing and immersing yourself into getting better, that will last your entire lifetime. If you're going to spend time practicing something, why not make it the one thing that's going to make your life more enjoyable in all areas? The people who can talk, the people who can really talk, get the furthest in life time after time. They get the best jobs, they make the most money, they date the hottest women. I had a friend, Leo, who he dropped out of college and was a bartender, and the guy was just an amazing talker. He'd be at the bar, and clients customers at the bar would love this guy. And sure enough, I run into him a few months ago. I hadn't seen him in probably about 6 years. Last time I had seen him, he was working. He had dropped out of college and was working as a bartender. And now I see him, and he's got a sales job making like $300,000 a year. That's the power of being able to talk. Now, I'm by no means a natural talker. I'm probably the exact opposite of it, as I was ridiculously shy throughout most of my life. I couldn't keep a conversation going. I didn't know how to have fun with people that I wasn't comfortable around. If I was with one of my friends, close friends, I was fine. But the minute you put me in front of people I didn't know, I sort of shell went around me and I couldn't communicate. But over the past 6 years, by devoting time to developing my conversation skills, I've dated women that I didn't think possible. I've made friends around the world. I've been invited to places like the Playboy Mansion, the Super Bowl, conferences, parties, an entire list of things I never thought possible. The basis of everything you learn about creating attraction with women, no matter what program or theory, no matter what advice you ultimately follow, it all comes down to your ability to create good conversations. You can't skip that part. You can't skip it. Unless you're a Greek god who women just fall over because you're so damn good looking, you will always struggle unless you fix this. And I believe that continuing to learn this can take you even further. It can elevate you to higher and higher social circles, networking with more powerful people, get you invited to more exclusive events, and introduce you to lifelong friends, women, and relationships that are going to give your life a lot more meaning and excitement. So I ask you, will spending an hour in the gym every day do that for you? Will playing an hour of video games every day do that for you? Will studying the stock market or even computers give you that ability? The answer, in my opinion, is no. An hour a day spent perfecting your conversation skills is going to take you further in life than any of those other things combined. And for the purpose of this program, it's also going to get you laid a hell of a lot more. So let's start with the idea of conversation goals. All right, when it comes to conversation goals, there are two things I want you to write down. One is the idea of intention, and the other is the idea of value. Now, both of these things are extremely misunderstood. As I've been working with guys in my social training lab program for the past couple years, I realized that both of these ideas are sort of distorted in a lot of people's minds, and I want to clear these up because intention and value are the keys to your conversations. So let's start with this idea of intention. The definition of intention is an act or insistence on determining mentally upon some action or result. How does this relate to conversations? Well, what I found is that most guys, when they start talking to a woman, they don't really know what their outcome is that they want. They don't know where they're going with it or what result they want. They see a woman they want to talk to and they think, I should be talking to her. But they don't really know where they're going to go, what the ultimate result they want out of it. Do they want to get her phone number? Are they trying to get her back to their place? Are you trying to set up a date? Are you trying to plant seeds for a future meeting? Now, when you don't know what your intention is, what you don't know what the ultimate result you want is, you're kind of just lost in the water without any real idea of how to move forward. What I've also found, and this is something that I faced myself for many years, but I've also found that a lot of the guys that I work with feel, is that the fear of approaching a woman doesn't stem from thinking that the woman's going to slap them in the face. You don't necessarily feel that the woman is going to be extremely negative to you or put you down. The fear is often that she'll actually be receptive to talking to you, and then you'll be forced to talk to her. And it's almost like, now what? Okay, she bit. She's willing to talk to me. Now what? Because you don't have an intention of where you want to go or what your next step is going to be. And because of this, what you might be doing, and what I've noticed that most guys do, is when they get into a conversation, they're looking for a chance to bounce. They're waiting for the woman to give them some sign that she doesn't want to be talking to them so that they can kind of excuse themselves. What I've also found, a lot of guys talk to women for the sole purpose of validating themselves. And what I mean by this is that they approach a woman and they just want to talk to her just to make themselves feel better for actually talking to a woman, but they don't really have a clear goal. And like I want to keep stressing, when you don't have a clear goal for a conversation, you're not going to get anywhere with it. You're going to just go in circles and you're going to sort of feel lost. And when you do this, when you start feeling lost, you start going in circles, you begin to look for the woman to take control, and you let her steer the conversation. And if you let a woman steer the conversation, not only is it going to veer into a very conversation that's not conducive for creating attraction, it also makes you not appear to be a leader. You're not taking control of the conversation. You're sort of giving her the reins and the responsibility for keeping the conversation going and for creating this flirtatious conversation. And she doesn't want that. A woman doesn't want a man who is going to expect her to do all the work. She wants a man who knows what he wants and is able to make it happen. And what guys tend to do is they expect her to hold some sign up telling them, hey, it's okay to escalate now. It's okay to begin flirting with me. It's okay to tell me a story. It's okay to do this. A woman is not going to give you the signs. She's not going to tell you it's okay to begin teasing her. She's not going to tell you it's okay to begin asking her personal questions. She's not going to say, hey, now you can get sexual. These are all things that as a man, you're responsible for doing. Now, when you have a goal or a direction for a conversation, you're always moving towards it. And yes, there's going to be roadblocks in your way. Yes, sometimes you're going to take a wrong turn and get off the track. But you're always going to be able to get back on because you have an ultimate road of where you're going. However, when you don't have a road, the minute you hit a roadblock, the minute a woman gives you something that you can't use, or the minute the woman shit tests you, or seems offended, or gives you any sign that you messed up, you're going to retreat. Because you don't know where you're going anyway. But when you know where you're going, you just sort of adjust your game, you take a step back, and then you go forward again, and you just continue going forward. This idea of intention also helps with motivation. Because it's very hard to motivate yourself to do something when you don't really know what results you're going after. But when you have a clear result, if you say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to get this girl's phone number, or I'm going to take this girl home tonight. You have a prize in front of you. You have a finish line that you're looking at. And when you have a finish line, it's a lot easier to fight through the awkwardness or the struggle because you know where you're going. You have that end goal in mind. Now, this does not mean you don't stop until you get there. It doesn't mean that every woman is going to give you her phone number just because you have an intention to get it. It doesn't mean that every woman's going to go home with you just because you have an intention to go home with her. But here's the big difference, and I want you to really think about this. Think back to some of your conversations, some of your most recent conversations. Did you not get the woman's phone number because she told you no and you tried and you just couldn't get it? Or did you not get the woman's phone number because you just sort of got lost and it didn't come up and you didn't think to go for it, or you weren't sure so you didn't go for it? Chances are you didn't get the phone number because it wasn't your goal, and in the conversation you never really went for it. You never sort of progressed towards it. And you didn't give her a chance to say no. You've decided for her, nah, I'm not going to go for it. The same thing with taking a girl home. Have you ever been talking with a girl and thought to yourself, you know, I bet you she'd go home with me tonight. I feel attraction towards her. But you didn't go for it because that wasn't your intention. And because you hadn't had the goal of doing that, you didn't go for it, and instead you made up her mind for her and said, she probably won't want to do it. Now, I'm not saying every girl's going to want to go home with you or every girl's going to want to give you her number. What I'm saying is that when you start talking to a girl and you have an idea of what you want out of it, you keep going towards it until you get a clear no. She's going to give you a clear no. That no may be, hey, I gotta get up for work early tomorrow. I really can't go home with you tonight. Well, you got to know. At least you went for it. When you don't go for it, you never know. And when you have this goal in mind, It eliminates the anxiety because you're just moving forward. It's like I said earlier, if you drive around without an end goal and you get lost, it's like, where am I? I'm in the middle of nowhere. What the hell do I do? Who do I call to get me out of here? But when you have an end goal, when you know where you're going and you get lost, you keep making turns until you get there. You keep looking for the signs of, okay, it's all right, I can make the turn now, it's okay. And you keep going, and eventually you get there. So that is the first thing I want you to keep in mind with your conversations, is to have a goal. Do you want to sleep with the woman? Do you want to get her phone number? Do you want to get her back to your place? Are you looking to make a friend? If you see a woman in Starbucks and you say, hey, I want to talk to her, what ultimately do you want to get out of it? Yes, you want to first find out if you're compatible with her, but then ultimately, what do you want? Do you want to try to get her out to take a walk with you on an Insta date? Do you want to get her number? What do you want? Do you want to get her Facebook address so you can follow up later? You got to know these things going in. The second and more important part of this idea of intention is that once you have the goal, you make a firm decision to go for it, and you go for it 100%. You don't go for it with one foot in and the other foot waiting to run the other way. You go for it with the decision that you're going to do everything you can to get the result you want. All right, the second part of what I wanted to talk to in terms of conversation goals is this idea of value. And this is an extremely misunderstood idea. The more and more I talk with guys and I drill down to find out what really scares them, what really frustrates them about conversation, I can always get to this point of value where they think to themselves, I have nothing to offer this girl. Why would she want to talk to me? What value do I have? See, here's the thing. The guy who brings the most value to a conversation wins. But unlike what you might be thinking in terms of value is how much money you make or how good looking you are or all these different things, value has nothing to do with these. Value is defined by what you bring into the moment she's experiencing. Everything that is going on in your life outside of that moment is completely irrelevant to the value you're offering her in that moment. So if you're an unemployed virgin who lives at home with their parents and you think, why would a girl have any interest in me? That has nothing to do, that's completely irrelevant to the moment you're experiencing with her, and the value that you're offering her has everything to do mainly with three things. One is the idea of fun. It's creating a very fun environment. The second is this idea of creating an emotional connection. And third is the idea of letting her feel like she's winning you over. See, the value that you offer her has everything to do with the way you're interacting with her in the moment. And when you know how to do this right, she'll assume the rest. She'll assume that you've had a lot of girlfriends. She'll assume that you're a popular guy. She'll assume that you have a big social circle. She'll assume that you're used to talking to girls like her. And that's where she sees the value. The value is defined by what you bring into the moment she's experiencing and has nothing to do with the size of your wallet, your muscle, or your social circle. Value is not bragging about your accomplishments. There's gurus out there that tell you have to tell all these stories about how you drove around in your Ferrari with a supermodel and your ex-girlfriend was on the cover of Playboy magazine, and you create all this bullshit stories to brag to a woman. But that's not value, because you know what? When you're bragging to a woman, you're not offering anything to the moment she's experiencing. There's a difference between bragging about your accomplishments and packaging yourself correctly. What we want to concentrate on is packaging ourselves correctly. See, here's the thing. We judge books by their cover. It's a fact of life. When we go to a bookstore, and I'm the king of this. When I go to the bookstore, I look around and I pick up a book and I judge it by its cover. Well, you're being judged by your cover, but here's the thing. Your cover is not your physical appearance. A lot of guys get really, really obsessed with the idea that they're being judged by their physical appearance. But that's not your cover. Your cover is how you carry yourself and how you interact with the women. That's what she's ultimately judging you on. I've met people that by their physical appearance, my first thought would have been like, this guy's gonna be the kind of guy who has no friends, sits at home on Friday nights. But the minute you start talking to them, you immediately know that that's not this guy. This guy's probably got huge amounts of friends because he knows how to talk to me. He gets it. He knows how to communicate. And then all of a sudden, you project on all these positive traits, all this value to them by the way they're communicating with you. So it's not bragging about your accomplishments. It's creating a conversation where you shine. So here's an example. A rich guy, even if he's good looking, a rich, good looking investment banker who can't get out of an interview mode with a woman creates no attraction and he loses. On the other hand, a broke waiter who knows how to highlight his fun side and help the woman experience like a really intense moment, he wins. I mentioned my friend Leo earlier who was dropped out of college and was a waiter, and he got more women than anybody I ever met because he knew how to package himself. He knew how to offer the woman the most intense experience in the moment. See, what I found is that some of my best conversations and the seductions that happened the quickest and the women that went on to I actually had a connection with and dated involved sharing very little personal information. They didn't know how much money I was making. Some of them didn't even know what I did for a living because that was so irrelevant to the experience we were having in the moment. It was irrelevant to the conversation we were having because we were having so much fun that she didn't care where I went to college or how many friends I had. That is what you have to keep in mind. That value is not defined by your accomplishments or any of these things. It's completely defined by the experience you're giving her in the moment. So let's talk about what your goals are in terms of this experience. What defines value in terms of experience? So the first element of value is this idea of fun. Now, I'm not going to go too much into fun right now because the entire next lesson, that entire next hour-long lesson is all about this idea of fun. But here's the thing. Fun is the ultimate currency. Fun is why we go out. Fun is why we choose to hang out with the people that we hang out with. Fun is the reason we spend money to go out, the reason why we drink, the reason why people do drugs. It's to escape the boredom trance that their life is, to get out and experience a moment where they're outside of their own head, where they're not thinking about work, to experience a moment where they're not feeling anxiety or depression, to just let go and have fun. Fun is the ultimate currency, and it's the ultimate thing that you can offer somebody. And when you mix fun in with emotional connection and validating her through letting her feel like she's winning you over, you are offering her more value than you could possibly imagine. Much more value than anything that has to do with how tall you are or how much you earn for a living or how many girls you've slept with in the past. That is the ultimate currency, is fun. See, the thing is, most people go through life in what I call a boredom trance. We have the same conversations with our friends. I think about the last 10 conversations you've had with any of your good friends when you went out. Chances are you've talked about the same things. You've probably went to the same bars, stood in relatively the same spot, waiting for something, anything to happen. Thing is, we've gotten to the point where we don't even expect anything to happen. When we go out, we almost just assume that it's going to be the same way as the last time we were out. And women are like this too. You may think, oh, she's a beautiful woman. But I could tell you what, I've dated tons of beautiful women. I've been friends with beautiful women. I've been around beautiful women for the past 10 years. And they are in just as big of a boredom trance as any guy you will ever meet. You know, when you get to know these girls, you find out that they're on anxiety medication. They're on depression medication. They're going through the same perils and struggles that everybody else is. And they're looking for the same escape that everybody else is. And when you can snap her out of it, when you can snap a woman out of that boredom trance and have her think, wow, tonight something a little different is happening. This is something I haven't experienced. This is a conversation I haven't had. This person is genuinely surprising me. you're winning. You're offering value to her night. She's going to remember that. It's not going to be a night where she can go out and talk to the best looking guy in the world, but if she just has a normal conversation with him, the minute she leaves that bar, that is not going to have impacted her life and she's going to forget about it. But when she meets somebody that arouses her out of her boredom, that's somebody that offered her value and that she remembers. Now, like I said, I'm not going to go too much further into fun right now because the next lesson is on creating playful, fun conversations, and we're going to talk a lot more about how to create these fun conversations. And then throughout the rest of the program, I'm going to continue giving you more techniques and tactics for doing this. But right now, I want you to just keep in mind that if you're capable of showing a woman a fun time, then you're capable of giving her more value than any guy who may have a better physical appearance than you, who may make more money than you, and who may have more friends than you. If you can go out and get her out of her boredom trance, you are ahead of 90% of the competition out there. Okay, the next element of bringing value to a conversation is to create an emotional experience for her. Emotion, like fun, is one of the most addicting elements in our lives. We crave emotional experiences. We go to the movies because we want to experience emotions. I mean, women go to watch a movie that makes them cry because it feels good to feel that emotion, any emotion. To watch an action movie and have your adrenaline pumping, to get that emotion is addicting. The movies that we remember are the movies that create the most emotion. And you might have heard this idea of, you got to create an emotional experience for a woman. But I want to make it clear on what this means and why it's important. The more of an emotional experience that you create, the more you get her invested in the conversation. Because when she starts experiencing emotion, it allows her to put her guard down and then it draws her in. Here's the thing. A lot of guys get really affected when a woman flakes on them. And they get really offended and they think, what did I do? Why didn't the woman like me? But the thing is that it had nothing to do with her not liking you. It had to do with you not creating a lasting emotional experience in her. Because she now has nothing on the line. Once you've gotten her emotionally involved, now there's something on the line. It's sort of like the reason of once a movie, when you're watching a movie and it hooks you on an emotional level and you care about the characters and you care about the story, it's impossible to stop watching and you're going to go back to that movie. But if you watch a movie that doesn't affect you on any sort of emotional level, you're not going to care if it goes back. And even if you were enjoying it at the time you're watching it, and maybe you've had that. Maybe you've had a movie where you were watching it and you were having a really good time watching it, but then one of your friends called and you had to suddenly leave and you just never went back and finished the movie. And on the other hand, there might be a movie that you were watching and it wasn't necessarily the best, most exciting movie in the world. However, you were hooked emotionally, and when your friend called and told you that, he wanted to meet you here, you told him to wait a half an hour because you had to finish watching the movie. Or maybe you turned it off, but then later on you went and found it on DVR, or you went and rented it because you had to know the answer. Well, that's how it is with women. And this is sort of why, thing is in a normal day-to-day activity, when you go to work, when you're standing in the elevator chatting with somebody, when you're out at a bar having a casual conversation, most of the time, emotions aren't involved. You have a very surface level experience. And when you allow a woman to feel an emotional experience in your presence, it separates you from all the other people out there. This is why the easiest way to get her invested in you is to get her feeling emotions around you. Emotions are addicting, and ultimately what you want to do is create a roller coaster-like experience for her in her conversation with you. Because the thing is, too much of one thing is boring. If the entire time you were on a roller coaster, you were going up the hill the entire time, it wouldn't be fun. You need the peaks and the valleys. You need to go up, 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 and then shoot down. If the entire time you were shooting down at 100 miles an hour, after a while, even that would get boring. You need the back and forth. You need the roller coaster type things to sort of play with the emotions, to let them think that something's going to happen and then take it another way. So you need the roller coaster experience. As we're going to talk about in the banter workshop and in the rapport building workshop, too much banter without any sort of emotional connection fizzles out, it gets old, and it doesn't progress. Like, you might have had that experience. How many times have you gone out and you've bantered with a woman, and maybe you've had that banter with her where you've got some good witty one-liners and she laughed and it seemed like everything was great, and then you never heard from her again. And the same thing is when you go out and you create too much rapport. How many times have you gone out and had a really good conversation with a woman and you had too much rapport, but you didn't mix the danger of sexuality into it, and you didn't create that roller coaster of emotions? That's what you want. You want a roller coaster of emotional experience. So how do we create this roller coaster ride of an emotional experience? When guys hear that they need to create an emotional experience for a woman, they tend to think that it means they need to talk to them about emotional topics, but that's not what you need to do. You don't need to talk about emotions, you need to create them. Spending an hour listening to her talk about her feelings, that's therapy. That's what she goes to a therapist for. To have her talk about how much she was in love with her ex-boyfriend or how good she felt on her last vacation. That's not an emotional experience. An emotional experience is surprising her with a boldly honest comment that both excites her and scares her. That's creating emotion. It's like, so let's look at it like this. Let's use the movie analogy that we talked about earlier. If you went to a movie and the entire movie was two characters having an emotional conversation about, you know, what they liked about life and what they didn't like, and the whole thing was a conversation about emotions, you're not going to feel those emotions. You feel emotion by being surprised, by being taken back, by getting attached to somebody, by being scared, by feeling adrenaline rush. Those are emotions. So in a conversation, if you want a woman to feel emotions, you don't do it through talking about feelings. You get it by getting her to feel things. And you do that by, let's say, surprising her with a boldly honest comment that both excites her and scares her. That's creating emotion. So I want you to keep that in mind. And we're going to, throughout this entire program, this idea of creating an emotional experience is going to be one of the main topics. No matter if we're talking about banter, rapport, flirtation, or playfulness, all these things I'm going to be teaching you throughout this program is designed to create an emotional experience in women. So keep that in mind for now as you're going through the rest of the program, that the reason you're learning it is to create an emotional experience. The final thing I wanted to talk about in terms of value is the idea that you're letting her feel like she's winning you over, and you actually let her win you over. We like to be around people that bring out the best of us. We don't judge a conversation or an interaction necessarily on how interesting the other person was. We judge it on how interesting they made us feel or how funny they made us. We like to be around people that make us feel funny, people that bring out our humorous side, who make us feel like we're entertaining. So you don't want to put all your focus on getting yourself validated and making her think, oh, he's such an entertaining person. You want to also let her feel like you're discovering these qualities in her. Because we judge a night based on our performance. If you've ever woken up and thought, man, that was a really good night last night, it probably wasn't because you met somebody who was extremely interesting. It was probably because you felt like you were on. You felt like you were in the zone and you were like entertaining and people liked you. That's what makes you feel like you had a good night. So you want to give a woman that feeling, like she was on, because we like to be around people that make us feel like we're on, that make us feel cool or entertaining. And we value things more when we have to win them over. So every year I put on this wingman retreat down in the Dominican Republic. And we go down there to game both the tourists, and then we also hang out with some local girls. The local girls tend to like foreign guys. So if you're down there on vacation, chances are it's going to be a little easier to hook up with the local girls. They're just very curious about us. They look at us in a way that makes it easy for us to break the ice and to talk to them. So the first day there, we have a pool party, and some of the local girls show up. And there's this guy, Brett, who's there. And earlier in the day, he had been telling me how he hadn't had sex in years, that he hadn't even kissed a girl in a while, and just really down and saying how much he was just craving, like, physical encounter with a woman. So a little bit later at the party, one of the girls really is into this kid, Brett, and she's coming on to him. And Latin girls in general, my girlfriend's Latin, and I love this about them, is they're more aggressive. You know, they're not ashamed of their sexuality. They tend to be more open about it, and they tend to actually be willing to do a little bit of the escalating. And that's how this girl was. She was into Brett, wasn't afraid to let him know, and was actually, you know, pushing the interaction forward. And so I went up to Brett and I saw him. I said, "What's wrong, man? You seem a little shaken up." And he's like, "I don't know. It just, you know, she's not, I feel like I didn't have to win her over. And, you know, it just seems weird that she just likes me without me having to do anything." And what I explained to him then is I said, "Well, how do you think a hot girl feels? When a hot girl goes out and a guy likes her immediately, based on her looks, it feels fishy. It doesn't feel real. It feels the way you feel towards this Dominican girl down in it feels fishy. It doesn't feel real. The way you're feeling towards this girl here in the Dominican Republic who is too interested in you too quickly is the same way a beautiful woman feels when a guy is too interested in her too quickly and doesn't feel like anything she's doing is winning him over. This is why it's necessary that you've got to make a woman feel that she's winning you over through a mixture of her sexiness, her cuteness, her personality, her sense of humor. All these things you've got to discover about her slowly and give her the illusion that she's winning you over. Not that you just chose her and that just, you know, you made up your mind right away to have her. Because it's a turnoff when we do this. It's a turnoff if we get something too quickly. Brett got that girl down in the Dominican Republic too quickly, and even though he was hungry for physical and even though he was hungry for sex, even though it had been a long time since he'd even kissed a girl, it was very hard for him to accept it and to go forward. So you want to keep that in mind. So how do we create these fun, value-packed, emotional conversations that let women feel like they're winning us over? There are 3 keys to these sort of conversations: curiosity, impudence, and humor. Right now, I want to talk about each of these 3 things because these are the cornerstones of the remainder of this program. The idea of curiosity, impudence, and humor to create emotional, fun, value-packed conversations that allow a woman to feel like she's winning us over. The first element to keep in mind is the idea of curiosity. Why is curiosity so important? Because it serves 5 major needs. It keeps the conversation going. It lets her win you over. It veers you into the fun zone. It motivates you to push past resistance. So why is curiosity so important? Because it keeps the conversation going, it allows her to feel like she's winning you over, and it veers you into the friend zone, plus it motivates you to push past resistance. Let's talk first about what curiosity is, because curiosity does not mean barraging her with questions about her life. When you tell somebody to be curious, they automatically assume it means ask her a ton of questions, find out different things about her. But that's not this idea of curiosity I want you to keep in mind. The curiosity should be the attitude and mentality you have towards the conversation. These are the thoughts you should have. How would she react to this? What turns her on? What will she find funny? How far can I go? What made her say that? What does she really think about something? Is she someone I could get along with? Everything in your conversation should be geared towards figuring those things out, not in prying out detailed information about her past. That's not the curiosity mindset. It's these things: how she's going to react to something, what turns her on, what she finds funny, how far you can go with something, what made her say things, what she likes, what she doesn't like. And like I said, ultimately, is she someone you could get along with? So why am I saying that curiosity is motivating? Curiosity motivates you to push past resistance. I know that when you're standing next to a girl in a bar, there's that nervousness, there's that sort of resistance to turn to her and start to talk to her. I've faced it for a very long time. And part of it is just the natural fear of, not knowing what to say. But there's also a lack of motivation because you're not invested at all. It's sort of like when you first start reading a book. The first few pages of the book are the hardest to get through because until you find something to connect to in that book, you really have no reason to push yourself to keep reading. So we need to know enough about someone to care. We need to know enough about someone to care. We need to learn things about a person before we want to hang out with them. That's why when there's a new person in our group of friends that kind of gets into the group, we sort of shun them at first because we don't even know enough about them. We don't know what they find funny. We don't know what their personality is. So we know we sort of have to walk on eggshells around them until we discover this. And a lot of times it's just not worth the effort to us. So we just sort of ignore that person. But you got to push through that. And you got to use curiosity as a way to figure it out. Be curious enough about her to find things that make you want to learn more about her. And the more you want to learn about her, the more motivated you are to continue the conversation. The more motivated you'll be in the future to start new conversations with women because you'll always have this sort of attitude of like, what she really like, what turns her on, what kind of humor does she have. And if you go into it trying to find these things out, it makes for much more engaging conversation. Another reason that curiosity is so important to a conversation is because it helps veer you into the fun zone. A lot of times when you're talking to a woman, she'll give you hints at what's going to become a fun topic. For instance, the things that she tries to skip over, or like the down notes that she's telling you something and she sort of mumbles something and you become curious and you say, what'd you just say? A lot of times that's the gold. Another great phrase is, I need to hear that story. So if a woman's telling you something and she mentions something that seems interesting, you can say, I need to hear that story. Because a lot of times that's where you're going to get into the fun zone. Those are the fun stories. She's not going to volunteer a lot of times the good stuff. You're going to have to be curious enough to listen in and then pry it out of her. Curiosity also lets her feel like she's winning you over. And you want to let yourself be won over. Don't make an immediate judgment about her. Like I already said, your thoughts should be like, do I have the same sense of humor as this girl? What is she really like? And let yourself discover this and slowly be won over, because that's going to be what she ultimately wants. We all have things we want people to be impressed about, and those are the things you want to discover about her and be even more curious, is the things that she wants you to be impressed about. A hot girl may not want you to be impressed that she's beautiful. She may want you to be impressed that she's actually really funny, or she may want you to be impressed that she's actually really ambitious about her career. You got to figure out what it is that they want you to feel impressed about and give her the validation on that, not on the fact that she's just beautiful. You need to discover what it is that she's most proud of about herself, and then let yourself be impressed by it. And be curious about it and want to learn more about it, because that is the gold. Those are the things that she's most emotional about. Those are the things that really get her to open up and invest into the conversation. And you're only going to discover these things by being curious. And the final reason that curiosity is so powerful, and the reason that I like it the most, is because it allows you to keep the conversation going. We all know how hard and sort of frustrating it can be when you're in a conversation with a girl and your mind starts going blank and you don't know where to go, and you're both kind of staring at each other like both realizing you have nothing to say, nothing in common, and it's pretty embarrassing. Whereas when you get in this mentality of curiosity, it allows you to easily keep the conversation going, because it allows you to spot hooks, but it also allows you to dig for gold. And I'm going to explain exactly how to do it, and sort of a method. So if you have a piece of paper near you, or you got your computer open, you might want to write this down, because if you have any trouble keeping a conversation going, what I'm about to teach you is something that you can use immediately, and it'll make it almost impossible for you to run out of things to say. So here's an idea. The first thing is this idea of bidding a topic. So now you're talking to a woman and you want to get the conversation in a fun zone, so you want to bid a topic, see how she reacts, and then see where you can take it. So let's give you 3 different ways you can bid topics. You can bid a topic by making a statement, you can bid a topic by asking a question, and you can bid a topic by giving a preview. So let's give an example of a statement. So you can say something like, I'm addicted to the Charlie Sheen train wreck. That would be a statement where you bid the topic of the Charlie Sheen going crazy. Next, you can use a question. You can say, so you've been watching Charlie Sheen go crazy on live TV? So you just bid the topic by asking her a question. Or you can make a preview. Guess what Charlie Sheen did today? 3 different ways you brought up the topic of Charlie Sheen. But here's the beauty of bidding a topic. Just because the topic that you bid was Charlie Sheen doesn't mean that that's where you have to stay. There's different ways now that I'm going to show you, and this is where it gets really good, of how you can take a topic like Charlie Sheen and take it in any different direction, trying to dig for gold and trying to see what she's going to latch onto the most. There is 6 ways you can do this. You can topic tie. You can use the first then after approach. You can use the touching off approach. You can use thematic touch-offs, triggered topics, or lists. So I'm going to give you an example right now of all the different ways that you can now take that topic of Charlie Sheen and how you can twist it and turn it into any direction you want. So you've said to her, so you've been watching the Charlie Sheen train wreck on TV. You bid the topic of Charlie Sheen. Now what you can do is, however she responds to that, you can say, yeah, he totally reminds me of this crazy science teacher I had back in high school. Everybody I know has someone Charlie Sheen reminds him of. Who's it for you? So what you did there was you took the topic of Charlie Sheen, but now you've introduced a few other things that she can now use to keep the conversation going. You brought up your crazy science teacher. So now she may say, hey, yeah, I had a crazy teacher too back in middle school. Or she may ask you what was crazy about him, and now it gives you a chance to tell a story about, your middle school days and what this guy did. She may say, yeah, you're right, I actually have a friend who reminds me of Charlie Sheen. And now she can tell you about that friend. So you just brought up this topic of Charlie Sheen, but you were able to tie it into a variety of different things and see which one that she gets the most enjoyment out of. The one where her eyes sort of light up, or she gets a giggle, or she gets a sparkle, and you think, that's going to be the one that I'm going to go with. So that's topic tying. Here's the next way. So the next way is the first then after. So let's say you've said, so you've been watching the Charlie Sheen train wreck? And now the first then after method, you can say something like, yeah, next thing you know, he's going to have his own reality TV show. I would love to have a reality TV show where the camera just followed me around. Sort of like that Idiot Abroad show, except I wouldn't be an idiot. What about you? Would you like to have cameras following you around? So what you did there is you gave her a lot of ammunition. You said Charlie Sheen's going to have his own reality TV show. She can address that, and she can, that can spark the conversation. You said, I'd love to have a reality show where the cameras followed me around my world traveling. So now you get to bring up traveling. She may ask you about that. She may say, oh, you travel a lot, or where have you been? You brought up the show Idiot Abroad. You said, like Idiot Abroad. She may say, I love that show. It's so funny, or I hate that show. So now you have the topic of Idiot Abroad. You also said, what about you? Would you be into that? So now you give her a chance to say whether or not she would ever be on a reality show. You can begin teasing her and say, I could totally see you on a show like Real World, or I could see you on The Bachelorette. You totally remind me of the kind of girl who would be like fighting over Bret Michaels on Rock of Love. So you just took the topic of Charlie Sheen, you switched it into reality show, but now you can go in a lot of different directions with it. Here's another example of touching off, another way. So now you've did the same thing. You said, so have you been watching the Charlie Sheen train wreck? And now you can touch off. Touching off means you go back to something she said earlier. So you can go, earlier you were saying you like assertive guys. Charlie's pretty assertive. So where's your limit? What turns you off? So now you've used Charlie Sheen to go back to a comment she made earlier and allow her to dig deeper and to explain more of what turns her off, which you can easily turn into what turns you on. Thematic touch-offs, that's another way. So you bid the topic of Charlie Sheen. Have you been watching the Charlie Sheen train wreck? A thematic way to bounce the conversation would be to say, you think you'd be able to handle the excess of Hollywood lifestyle? So now Charlie Sheen is thematically involved with Hollywood, so you changed it to the Hollywood lifestyle. If she would like going out to these kind of parties and living that life. Triggered topics. So now you've said, so have you been watching the Charlie Sheen train wreck? And now you can use a triggered topic. You can say something like, speaking of nut jobs, give me your opinion on my friend's relationship with his girlfriend. So you've been talking about Charlie Sheen, but now it allowed you to change into like bringing up like some more glorified gossip about your friend's relationship. And now you go into that fun zone of talking about sex and relationships. And the final way is listed. So now you've said, have you been watching the Charlie Sheen train wreck? And you can say like, yeah, he's great in 2.5 Men. What are your top 5 funniest TV shows of all time? So now you've went from Charlie Sheen to her favorite funniest TV shows, and now maybe you can start doing quotes or joking about her, saying, yeah, you would like that show. Or turn it around and tease her saying, oh man, you have no taste in TV. So I just wanted to give you an example how being curious and bidding topics can now open multiple threads. So let's just quickly review how you do this. You bid a topic through the use of either a statement, which would be, I'm addicted to the Charlie Sheen train wreck, a question, which would be, have you been watching Charlie go crazy on live TV, or a preview, guess what Charlie did tonight. And then once you've brought up the topic, now you can open multiple threads by either topic tying, saying that it reminds you of something, using a first then after, saying next this is going to happen, touching off and saying earlier you were saying, using a thematic touch off, saying you'd think you'd be able to handle and bring in a theme, using a triggered topic, saying something like speaking of nut jobs, or making a list saying, so what are your top 5, whatever. And now you've opened multiple topics, and more importantly, you've put a lot of different things out there to see which one's going to hit. Because the trait of a good conversationalist is not hitting every time. The best talkers in the world fail a lot, but they put enough out there that they're able to find something that the girl latches onto. And once they find that thing that the girl latches onto, then it becomes easy for them to switch the conversation into a fun, flirtatious zone because they're no longer stuck in this boring area. So you want to use curiosity for those things, to keep conversation going, to let her feel like she's winning you over, to veer the topic into the fun zone, and also to motivate yourself to push past resistance. The final key to creating a conversation that creates an emotional response that allows her to have fun and allows her to feel like she's winning you over is the idea of being impudent. And what is impudent? Impudent is lacking modesty, of being bold, and to have a slight disregard to others. Now, if that sounds crude, or it sounds like I'm telling you to be a dick or to be rude, let me explain what I mean. So what I consider impudent is 4 different elements to the conversation. One is to be a little bit cheeky, to be a little bit bold, to have a splash of shamelessness, and to be slightly disrespectful. And as I explain these, you're going to see what I mean, and you're going to realize why it works so well. So the first thing in being impudent and displaying impudence is this idea of being cheek. And what does this mean? It means you're a little mischievous in your manner. You want a little bit of her to say, did he really just do that? Or like, did he really just say that? You want to break her out of the mold. So one of the reasons why this works so well is because we talked earlier about the boredom trance, and by making these sort of comments, by being a little impudent, it snaps her out of that boredom trance because she's not used to it. She's used to a very formal interaction with a stranger, and when you're not like that, she's like, did he really just say that? Did he really just do that? And now she's paying attention. You've interrupted her pattern. You've interrupted her boredom routine. So what is being cheek? What is this idea of being mischievous in your manner? Sort of, you want to keep in mind maybe like not knowing your place, displaying too much familiarity too soon. Most guys do the opposite, and they neuter themselves. Most guys go into a conversation and they try to play it way too safe. They try to be way too formal, and they come across as a stranger, and we hardly ever feel any sort of physical connection with a stranger or an emotional response to a stranger. We just become pretty indifferent to them. So what you do is you do the opposite of that, and you do things like, an example of being cheek is offering unsolicited advice. So let's say you're talking to a girl and she's got like blonde hair, and you'd say, you look really hot with black hair. You know, you just offered her advice that she didn't ask for. It's a little too familiar, but at the same time, it's just shocking enough that it catches her attention. And she's like, did he really just say that? And it makes her think to herself, like, wow, is that correct? Should he have just told me that? And by doing that, you're creating an emotional response because you just surprised her. And women are never really surprised in a conversation with guys they meet. Most of the time, they've had the same conversation over and over and over again, and now you're just introducing something just a little bit different, saying something like, you look hot with black hair. It's not rude, but it's also a little edgy. It's also like making her think, like, wait a minute, am I not hot now? Like, what's this guy's deal? I didn't really ask him if I would look good with black hair. Why is he volunteering this information? So you're being a little bit cheek, and you're also being bold. Fortune favors the bold. You need to be a little forward. You need to take risks with how you talk to her. So an example of that is, say she's talking too much, you can look at her and say, shut your trap. Or say she's getting loud with you, you can go, shut your trap. It's like something that you would never say that to a stranger. If you would never say that to a stranger, you'd never say that to your teacher, you would never say that to a coworker that you weren't comfortable with. You would say that to a friend, you would say that to your girlfriend, but you wouldn't say it to a stranger. So when you say that to her, it takes her by surprise. So you can say, shut your trap. So I was out with my friend the other night, and he's talking to some girl, and we kind of stopped talking for a second, and he turns to her and goes, I just totally caught you staring at me. It was a pretty bold thing to say. It was a little cheek. It took her by surprise, but it also snapped her out of reality, because there's that moment in her mind where she says, is it normal for a guy to push that line, to say that to me? This is a little different. Most guys are walking on eggshells around me, and he's telling me that he just caught me staring at him. That's being bold. And you want to remember that the sooner you're bold in a conversation, you set the tone for a more emotionally charged, attractive conversation. The next idea is splashing in a bit of shamelessness. Shamelessness is to have the nerve to call things out. Maybe you can go back to something she said in the conversation and tell her how you really feel about it. So maybe she said something earlier on, and now you can say, you know, when you said that, I thought, damn, she's aggressive. And you just told her, like, you weren't modest. You didn't try to hide what you were thinking. Or if she tells you it's girls' night out. This actually happened to me the other day. I was out with my friend, and the girl's like, it's girls' night out. And I was like, does this mean you don't shave your legs? And the girls were like, what? What are you talking about? And it was a kind of a personal question to ask a group of girls that I just met. But soon enough, after saying, does this mean you don't shave your legs? Soon enough, we were saying, if you're about to have sex with a guy and you haven't shaved your legs, what do you do? Do you have sex anyway? Do you care that you're hairy? And we had this big sexual conversation because I had the nerve to ask a simple question, does girls' night out mean you don't shave your legs? And it's really what it is. It's kind of that growing up, our parents sort of reject the shamelessness of, like, when a little kid says something that everybody's thinking, and it's like, oh, don't say that. Shamelessness is saying the unsaid. It's saying a thing that, like, if there was like a 5-year-old kid standing there and he noticed something, he would say it. Most people don't. Most people try to protect it and kind of keep the elephant hidden in the back of the room. You want to bring attention to it. You also want to do things like connect the dots. So for instance, if she leaves something out, fill it in for her. So maybe she's telling a story about a guy that she met off Match.com and it didn't work out. You could say, yeah, so the sex got boring, or no sexual attraction, no sexual chemistry. You're connecting the dots of what she left out of the conversation. That's being a little shameless. And then finally, to be masterful at impudence, you have to be slightly disrespectful. And I don't mean disrespectful in calling her names, calling her a bitch, treating her like crap. I mean, give her the same respect you would your best friend. We're not exactly super respectful to our friends. If one of our friends called us at 6 o'clock in the morning and woke us up, we'd be like, what the hell are you doing? And we'd just hang up on them. But whereas if like a coworker that we weren't really familiar with called us at 6 in the morning, we'd probably be really nice to them. And that's what we do with girls, is that we're overly nice to them, where the way you talk to your friends, you wouldn't talk to a girl. Well, you want to talk to a girl with the same level of respect you want to talk to your friends. Most guys, they give a girl the same level of respect that they would the principal of their elementary school. And like I said, they walk on eggshells around her, which makes it almost impossible to create any sort of emotional response. And how else can you be slightly disrespectful? Well, you can do it by not responding directly to what she just said. Too many guys, when they're having a conversation with a girl, they feel like whatever she wants to talk about is gospel. If she asks them a question, they have to answer it, and they have to give a good detailed answer. Well, you don't. Never respond directly to what she just said. If she's like, so where did you grow up? You can go, so the other night I was out, and you just totally ignore her question, and just later you can acknowledge her question and answer it. So you can say, oh yeah, you were asking me where I grew up, and then answer it, because you do want to fill in. There's certain information she may want to know about you, but don't feel like you have to provide that information when she asks for it, because not only is it showing that she's not in control of the conversation, it also makes for a more interesting conversation when it's not linear. So if she says, what do you do for a living? And you say, so the other night I was out with my friends, and there's a gap. She asked a question, and you left a gap there that now you can go back and answer it later, but at the same time you've opened up a place for surprise to happen. And that's ultimately what triggers attraction, what triggers that emotional response, what's fun, and it also makes her feel like she's got to win you over, that you're not going to just roll over and play dead because she's cute. She's got to win a guy like you over. So that's impudence. Impudence is being a little cheek, being a little bold, splashing in a bit of shamelessness, and also being slightly disrespectful. So the final thing I'm going to talk about is humor. Now, I'm not going to get into humor too much right now because the next lesson in this program is all about this idea of fun, not funny, what kind of humor works, how to keep a conversation playful. But for now, what I want you to keep in mind is that the more a woman is smiling and giggling in a conversation, the better. And that humor works so well because it's a social lubricant. When you're laughing, when a woman's laughing and giggling, it allows everything to happen much more smoothly. So when you combine curiosity, impudence, and humor, any guy using these things can craft conversations that are emotional, that are fun, that allow her to feel like she's winning you over. And that is ultimately how you create conversations that attract beautiful women. Like I said, in the next lesson, we're going to now start digging deeper into all of these things. We're going to start off in the next MP3 on the topic of humor and on the topic of creating playful conversations.